Can you take us through why these farmers are protesting and give us a little bit of context, because these go back to 2020?
Yeah, so they had an agitation in 2020 that lasted a whole year, where they were protesting against 3 farm laws, which they actually were able to bring the Modi government down to their knees and cancel those laws. And now they are back. This is just 2 months before the general election, and this is a good time for Indian farmers, for the farmers in north of India, to raise these demands. The problem really is that many of these demands don't really make any sense. There's a lot of exaggeration in terms of their demands. Many of the demands are not very thought through. For instance, they are saying one of the demands is that the government should waive off all the farm loans. So there is not much thinking on into it as to what would be the cost of it. So the repercussions of these demands on farmers themselves have not been fairly assessed.
Yeah, let me ask you
unions.
about that, because I know that the farmers are, in essence, demanding this minimum support price. I want to get your take on why you think that that's perhaps not reasonable. I read one of your pieces in the Economic Times saying that these demands won't help modernise the agriculture sector. Why is that?
Well, the minimum support price basically makes sure that all the farmers, they sell their produce to the government. As a result of, and most of that happens in 2 or 3 crops, wheat and rice. Because farmers in Punjab and Haryana sell their grain through the minimum support price system, there is little incentive for them to actually modernize and move into other crops, which can be much more highly lucrative if they allow the markets to prevail. But the system is such that they're not allowing the private markets to prevail, and therefore they're not allowing the profitability to increase in agriculture. The agriculture is constrained to be in 2 or 3 crops, wheat and rice in India, at least in this part of the country.
Yeah, that's the interesting economics of it. With respect to the process that we're seeing and the vision that we're seeing coming out of those regions, it seems that they are being met by force by the police. It's quite an amassing group. We've said in the introduction there that there's razor wire, fencing, water cannon is being used. Can you tell us a little bit about how they are being met by the authorities?
You see, that's the thing. I mean, the last protest, on the one side, it was a very impressive protest, a very peaceful protest for the whole year, when the farmers, this agitation, which was, historical, that they had this very peaceful protest for the whole year, and they were able to bring the government down. The economics of it is very different, whether it is good for India, whether it is good for the entire agriculture sector for the country, and even whether it's good for the rich farmers in northern India is another question. But on the politics of it, as well as on the, in the way that they have organized this last time and even now, is quite impressive. And, that is the risk that the Modi government faces, is that this is a very peaceful protest, and when you see them, being through tear gas or through other means, they've been controlled, that kind of has a very different kind of a narrative, and people are not going to be very happy to see farmers in that kind of state.
Yeah, you mentioned...
So there's a lot of sympathy for farmers, even though the farmers who are agitated, farmers who are in the north of northern states of Punjab and Haryana, are generally very rich. They don't really represent the farming community for the rest of the country, and they don't really represent the interest of the rest of the community. But these spectacles, they create a lot of sympathy for them, and it is remarkable how they are able to agitate in a peaceful manner like they did last time.
And as you mentioned, Niraj, this does come ahead of the general elections. Farmers are 2/3 of the 1.4 billion population. This is a subset of those farmers, as you just said. The agriculture contributes 1/5 of GDP. It's a powerful group. How is this likely to impact on the general elections and Modi's chances of re-election?
Modi is a very, very popular leader, so I don't think it's going to impact the election results overall. It does create an embarrassment because the other narrative is that we are living through this Ram Rajya. It's a state of high prosperity and peaceful coexistence, but if the capital is seized by farmers, then that narrative kind of gets weakened. But even with the last agitation that lasted one whole year, I don't think it had any impact on election outcomes, state elections that happened soon after that. Those were not affected. So
Okay.
I'm not sure whether they'll have much of a substantial impact. Modi is a very, very popular leader, and most people think that he's going to come back to power without much problem.
Well, talks resume today between the farmers and the union ministers. We will watch with interest. But for now, Neeraj Kaushal from Washington, D.C., Professor of Social Policy at Columbia University. Many thanks for your time.
Glad to be here.